Stream starting. Stream is healthy. Except I need to push the real stuff out. Well, hope you enjoyed that little preview from the green room. I'm learning, folks, and it's a great night, Friday night. I've had a big day, and it's going to get even bigger. In fact, it already has. Let me tell you just how packed we are tonight. We have got Roger, American Refugee, in our green room. We'll bring him on in just a moment. And with us tonight, kind of hanging out, is Wild Bill for America. Now, I announced earlier that Wild Bill for America will be appearing weekly. We plan to do Bill's Bites, and we're going to take a look at some of the news that you probably never see, and Bill will give you his take, and I guarantee you, you're going to like it. And it is, we have, in the words of Gina, that's a big catch, folks, Wild Bill for America. Now, also, you remember earlier this week, Troy Towns was sick on Monday night, but he is standing by when Roger goes off the air. We will be hearing from Troy Towns, and he'll give us a report on his March for Marriage. But in the meantime, what I need to do is get everything ready and kind of bring Roger on board from the green room. And Roger is coming to us all the way from the great state of Louisiana, New Orleans specifically. And Roger, you're in your homestead now. You're not in the in some ways better, but some ways worse facility. So it's good to be home.
It's good to be home. It's good to be home. The other facility has much faster internet, but it also has cables going through huge oak trees that sometimes move and sometimes cause you to drop. And
okay.
So that doesn't happen from here. But our connection is not. We're not streaming as fast over here as we are at the other location. How was your week this week, Mark?
Well, it's been a very busy week. Again, getting geared up for Wild Bill. We've got new equipment that's inbound. Been cleaning up the man cave, trying to make room for all the new stuff. So it's going to be busy. It's probably going to be, well, until my carpenter gets in here. It's going to be a while before we actually hit the threshold of doing everything we want to do. But in any event, what we're doing right now is nothing short of phenomenal. So, in fact, if you want to take a peek behind the scenes, you can see that we've got 3 monitors directly in front of me. I've got 2 new monitors. They're a little smaller down here. Okay, so I can see the preview and from the input-output. Got our new video mixer here. Touch screen laptop here, touch screen laptop here, and of course the big screen back there. So
yeah, there you go.
That's kind of overkill, but we'll be kind of flashing some pictures of the studio. It's getting better and better, folks. Thank you, thank God for His provision. This has been a dream, and we're just kind of practicing now. But we're very fortunate, Roger, to have you on board. It's been great every week, and I'm anxious to hear what's got your panties in a wad this week.
Well, I'll tell you what's got me going on this week, and first of all, it's kind of just the way I've been reacting to a few things over the week this week. I did not do as much research, I'm going to tell you right now, for this show as I usually do, just because of some things that have been going on that I've been extremely busy with. But
you've actually got a dying dog, folks.
I got a dying dog that I'm dealing with, and I don't know how much longer it's going to be, and it's a difficult situation. But I have been keeping up with the news, and I've kind of been also keeping up with conservatives' reaction to the news and reaction to what's going on. And I've got some comments that I want to share with y'all. First of all, my congressman is actually Steve Scalise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. He's the one that got shot in that little baseball.
Yeah, it's really not Steve Scalise. I'm right outside of his district, but the person I consider to be my congressman is Steve Scalise because, it's 15, I have to drive 10 minutes to get into his district. And that's the district where I pay attention to the politics, not in this one, because this particular district is just like, 90% Democrat. Yeah. And so there's no point in doing it. But, Steve Scalise has been fighting real hard this week and giving himself a lot of credit for trying to get these pro-life bills to the floor of Congress. And, of course, Nancy Pelosi is not letting him get them to the floor. And, Mark, I don't hate Steve Scalise. Steve Scalise is somebody I'm kind of middle of the road on. And I certainly prayed for him a whole lot while he was recovering from being shot. But Steve, you had 2 years to get things done when you had control of the House of Representatives. And I'm not buying your crap now. Okay?
This sounds kind of familiar. Deja vu. Obamacare.
Oh, yeah. Now they're trying to do all these great, wonderful things. The Republicans in the House of Representatives and the Democrats won't let them. But, Steve, why didn't you do these things for the last 2 years? Okay. Might we have held the House of Representatives if you had been doing these things for the last 2 years? Okay. And when you stand up and give impassioned speeches on the floor about anything, I don't even care what the issue is, okay? Because the truth of the matter is we had a very unproductive Congress the last 2 years. Now, that's not always a problem, okay? Sometimes an unproductive Congress is a good thing. It depends on the situation in the country. Mark, what does Congress do?
Pass laws.
Exactly. And what do we have too many of in this country generally?
Laws, yeah.
Okay. And we generally
the Ten Commandments kind of covers it,
Right, and we generally have too much government interference in this country and so on and so forth. So sometimes there have been times in my life when people have been upset. I remember during the Iran-Contra affair, and I was in college, and I had a college professor that was just going on and on, talking about all the time that Congress was having to waste on this. And I remember putting up the argument, no, well, that's the best thing about this, is that Congress isn't passing a whole bunch of bad laws right now and things like that. But after 8 years of Obama, and after 8 years of what we had, there was a certain amount of conservative agenda that absolutely needed to start getting enacted. And I was pitifully disappointed, not surprised, but pitifully disappointed in how little Republicans actually got done. What did they get done? They got the tax cut done. It wasn't perfect.
Yeah,
it was probably about the best that you could do. It certainly wasn't anything revolutionary like the fair tax, or anything like that. So they got that done. They started spending money, kind of like Obama on crack. Okay, so they spent a whole lot of money. Now they did increase spending in some military areas that needed to be increased, but they didn't actually cut anything at the same time. Okay, and so I'm a little frustrated. I'm a little frustrated with the job Congress did the first 2 years of the Trump administration, and I just got to tell you, I don't buy it when they pound their chest right now and say, "Oh, we'd be doing all of these wonderful things if only the Democrats would allow us to do it." Right. We've been down this road before, and it's frustrating. And you and I both know. We have to get more conservatives in Congress. There are not 50. There are not 50 conservatives in Congress. No. Okay, there's just not. And so it's a very, very frustrating thing. So that's one of the things that I've noticed. And I'm not telling people to go out and vote Democrat, and I'm not telling people to go out and not vote. but I am telling them to maybe think about running for office. Maybe think about challenging your local Republican congressman, or if you don't feel that you're the man to do it or that you're qualified to do it, getting behind somebody who can.
Well, the idea is the likelihood of that candidacy prevailing is, well, possible but distant, but it can send a clear message to the incumbent who does win that no, your mandate, your people aren't with you. You might want to pivot.
You might want to pivot. Look, we've had some effect on some things. As much as, for the most part, I don't like Mitch McConnell in the Senate. Mitch McConnell knows that he cannot survive if the base 100% turns on him. So as a result, he basically saved the Supreme Court. Okay,
we got to credit him with that. Yeah.
Yep, got to credit it with him. Got to credit him for it. But he would not have done it if not for the amount of moves that conservatives were making. Now, when I say saved the Supreme Court, I say he saved it from going absolutely down the tubes. I'm not real thrilled with where it is right now. I'm a little worried about a couple of Kavanaugh's decisions. I'm a little worried. Roberts, what it seems to me to be with Roberts, really, and I think I brought this up last week, but Roberts appears to vote conservative unless it's going to be a 5-4 decision that's going to make a major change. He does not have the guts to make major change in a 5-4 vote. Okay, he does in 6-3 votes, and he'll go along with a 5-4 vote that's not a major change. But that's why I don't trust him on Roe v. Wade, or anything else. As far as Kavanaugh goes, he was on the list. Promises made, promises kept. I certainly didn't like the way the left tried to ruin the man and go after the man.
Can I interject a point there? In recent news, and I do not keep up with the news, but I see enough of it. You can't escape it. It seems to me that during the Kavanaugh hearings, any accusation was referred to as credible, and guilt was assumed. Now we have I don't even know the guy's name. Apparently,
Jesse Smollett.
It's funny how the table kind of turned. His story is given instant credibility, and I'm amazed now. I've noticed this. Okay, clearly the guy is wrong. The facts just have come out, but every time
he's now been arrested.
Right, every time, as he should be. Every time I see anything on the mainstream media, or people, the apologists coming to his side to defend him, saying he was making a point about, hate crimes and this. It's like, no, actually he wasn't. He was saying he was assaulted.
We feel what came out.
He wasn't. The narrative wasn't, we've got to do something about hate crimes. We've got to do something about division. We've got to do something. No, he said he was assaulted and he falsely accused and used public resources and lied to the police.
He lied to the police.
So they try to frame it in that the cause is justified. The means is justified in the end. No, it's not.
No, he could have started up all kinds of problems. Retaliatory action against Trump supporters, things like that, because supposedly they were yelling MAGA and this is MAGA country and all of this kind of stuff, and it turns out to be completely, absolutely fabricated. I suspect, as of yesterday and even today, he was still trying to maintain his innocence. I suspect we'll see him head off to rehab soon.
I don't think much will happen to him at the end of the day. Now, let me ask you this, in your opinion, was this a simple publicity stunt, or was there a political, a sincere, genuine political motive, or maybe some combination of both?
I think there was some combination of both. I think he was dissatisfied with his $65,000 an episode. He wanted to get it higher, and I think he is also a radical leftist and a Trump hater.
Now, by the way, I forgot to mention the network, immediately stood by him and said, we're not canceling him from the show. Now, is that the same fair treatment that Duck Dynasty got? Is that the same treatment the brothers up in the I can't think of their names right now.
What about Roseanne Barr?
Roseanne Barr. Yeah, if you're on the conservative side,
what she did was far less severe than this.
For crying out loud, yeah. But if you're on the conservative side and there's some sort of impropriety, you're just fired. Okay, but him, not only did they not fire him, they stood behind him publicly.
They did. Now that's starting to change now. That's starting to change now because of the public backlash, and they're looking at their options. And it looks like they've written him out of the last 2 episodes of the season, and it looks like they're starting to look at either replacing him or killing off his character or something like that before next year's show. Because
that is far short of how they treated Duck Dynasty. That is far short of how they treated Roseanne Barr. That is far short. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. There are also some tweets today. Somebody put out, I forget what this liberal's name was, but they put out a tweet on Twitter that saying that just because this instance turned out to be false, that the people who supported him should not be embarrassed because in this current environment of runaway hate crimes, it was the right thing to do to believe him. Well, I'm sorry, but this is not an environment of runaway hate crimes. Most of the well-publicized quote-unquote hate crimes have turned out to be hoaxes when they've been on the other side. Now, what is real is that on college campuses, conservatives are getting beat up, conservative speakers are getting shut down, conservative organizations are not being allowed to form on campus. There's certainly violence against conservatives, and there is certainly a very, very strong move against free speech on college campuses.
Well, as a scientist or as a citizen, I think if anybody has a story, I mean, look at the way our courtroom is done. Okay, you bear testimony, but then that testimony is brought under cross-examination, and then you have to corroborate. Just verbal testimony needs corroboration. Now, I haven't kept up with this, but I was watching, and some family member or loved one or somebody said that they had some recordings, phone calls, something on their phone that corroborated his story, but they wouldn't turn it over to the police. Well, right then I said, okay. This does not pass the smell test.
The truth is it didn't from the beginning. There was another liberal that I saw today, and in theory, I could agree with some of what she said, but not in this case. She was talking about how, look, we don't ever know what's happened until all the facts are in, but the default position of believing someone who comes forward and saying that they were a victim is just compassionate, particularly if there's not a known offender. If somebody's just saying, hey, this happened to me, I was assaulted, that the default position of believing them, is compassion, and so none of the people should be embarrassed who believed him. Well, there's more to it in this case. You had to believe that the hate crime happened, in like 0-degree weather at like 2:30 in the morning in a liberal area of Chicago, okay, and that he didn't lose his Subway sandwich in the process, okay? I mean, like, it never passed the smell test. From the beginning of the whole thing, it didn't, and so that concerned me. That concerned me greatly. Mark, there's one more issue that I really want to delve into with you this week, though, because it's important and it's controversial as conservatives, where we are going to come down on this issue, and it's this: as Trump begins to move towards trying to build the border wall. And by the way, he hasn't yet. So far, the projects that have started are all projects that were approved prior to him becoming president, and it is replacing old, broken-down fencing with new steel bollards. Okay, but I do believe that he's going to move forward, and I do believe there's going to be these court challenges and legitimate. We talked about this last week, and we're seeing legitimate principled conservatives disagreeing over his degree of constitutional power in this area, and the argument about, well, what if it was a liberal that was declaring a state of emergency and coming and trying to take our guns, and so on and so forth.
Or our piston engine cars.
Exactly. Okay. Or come in and spend billions of dollars retrofitting buildings for green energy when Congress didn't approve that.
Mhm.
And here's what I want to say. It's not that I feel your constitutional concerns are illegitimate, conservatives, but we have to realize where we are. And we have to realize that there's a season for everything. And the rules only work when both sides play by the rules.
Mm.
And when the other side is not playing by the rules and has absolutely no respect for our constitutional republic, has no respect for the rule of law, and will do absolutely anything they can to shove things down our throat. It's a shame, but if we do not, to some degree, respond in kind, we're going to lose. And I want to make people realize just how radical the current Democrat agenda is were they to take power in a couple of years. Because it's not the Green New Deal that I'm worried about. That's fun to talk about, but they're not going to pass it. Okay? They'll pass some bad stuff, but they won't pass that. But what they are dead set on doing is packing the Supreme Court. Now, I talked a little while ago about McConnell saving the Supreme Court for the time being, and about the fact that Trump has been keeping his promises. I think he had a home run on Gorsuch. Kavanaugh wasn't my first choice, but he was on the list. I'm not mad at Trump over Kavanaugh. I hope that we do a little better with the next pick than we did with Kavanaugh. I have my favorites. But some people don't realize that the number of justices of the Supreme Court is not defined in the Constitution. It's not set down by the Constitution. It's set down by legislation. And if the Democrats are literally talking about simply packing the court, if they can take the Senate, hold the House, take the White House, the next war in the tit for tat of what's going on in the filibuster is that the Democrats will kill the filibuster on everything. There will be no more filibuster. Then they will simply, by legislation, increase the number of the Supreme Court from 9 to 13, and they will immediately appoint 4 extremist liberal Supreme Court justices.
Mm-hmm.
We're at war, folks. And we're at war with the invasion of our country. And I am not one of these people that is anti-Mexican. I am not one of these people that is anti-immigrant. I'm pro-legal immigration, and I'm pro-balanced immigration that's good for the country. I am not pro flooding the country with as many uneducated poor people as we can, immediately putting them on government assistance, and then they start voting whether they have the right to do it or not. You just want to look at some interesting election results. Go and look up the results in the states where they give illegal aliens driver's licenses. And you see that in all of the states where illegal aliens have driver's licenses, yes, these tended to be Democratic states, so they tended to do well with Democratic candidates beforehand, but that's growing. That's increasing, okay? And it's because of lacked voting requirements. So the voter fraud issue mixed with the flooding our country with poor people who you're immediately putting on government assistance that's a death knell for the country. So I've reached a point, Mark, where number one, I'm a big supporter of the wall, and I think that proper border security has to happen. I think we have to do whatever we have to do to get there. I'm a big supporter of fighting voter fraud, and I think we have to do what we have to go to get there. And I never thought I would say this, Mark. You know I didn't vote for him before, but I think my opinion, we have to re-elect Donald Trump president. And,
I had some thoughts earlier this week, and we'll save it for next week, but I just wanted to plant the idea in your mind. The last time I can remember a border, a wall, that played a major part in not only the history for that country, but for the history of the world. And I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm not predicting this. I'm not advocating this. But the kind of logic and the kind of support that we are hearing for the wall sounds a whole lot like the same arguments for the Maginot Line. Doesn't it? Oh, yeah. Now, I know that everybody in the sound of my voice may not know what the Maginot Line was. But, buddy, that was
Mark, 'cause you know it better than I do.
Oh, I do. After World War I, France, a major military power at the time, decided that there would never again be an invasion. And they constructed along their border what is referred to as the Maginot Line. This wasn't just a wall, Roger. This was a fortress. This was an armed fortress. Extensive tunneling. This thing nearly bankrupted them. And by golly, nothing was coming across that wall. It was a citadel. No more German invasions. No more foreign invasion. That wall did not slow Hitler down 1 hour. He flew right over it and bombed it to smithereens. It was an expensive disaster, but it was the pride of France. It was. If you go YouTube the Maginot Line, and
I'm familiar with it.
Oh boy, this thing was an undertaking. Like Trump would make Trump's wall look like a picket fence.
It is. Here are some differences, though. Here are some differences. Just as the fence has worked in Israel because of the fact that Israel has air dominance,
and aren't afraid to use it,
and aren't afraid to use. Actually, I've heard American pilots say that. I've heard many American pilots say that we're the second best pilots in the world, and that the Israelis are the best. And
we trained them,
and they get so many flight hours. That's the difference. They get so many.
Well, they're the size of New Jersey, Roger.
Yeah, and they're just in the air constantly. Okay, and they're just they are ready to go to town constantly. But we can build up our air power extremely quickly. Look, a wall isn't going to save you in a war with Russia. But when you're talking about illegal immigrant invasion of poor people, okay, I think the wall is an extremely useful tool.
Well, yeah, I'm not arguing that we shouldn't build it, but I mean, your reaction was similar to mine when my thoughts. So I thought, maybe next week, let's just have some intellectual intercourse, and talk about the Maginot Line, because they pinned all their hopes on that, and just like exactly, there are a lot of parallels here. Folks, the wall will help. I mean, we need it, no doubt. I mean, you can't just let people just walk across the border, and we've got a lot of border to protect. But it's not the silver bullet.
It's not a silver bullet. No, cracking down on sanctuary cities is also huge, and Mark, fixing legal immigration is also huge. Right now, I'm sorry, but it is easier for a person without a job, without an education, to immigrate into this country than it is a guy who's got an education, has invented some great new product, and wants to start up a business and hire people. Okay, and that's because that the Democrats for years have used immigration as an issue to try and change the voter makeup. To try and make the country not just browner, but less educated, more inclined to need government assistance. Put them on government assistance before they are citizens, so that they become addicted to the government assistance. All of these things. But cracking down on sanctuary cities, this idea that places like California are arresting people who have previously been convicted of violent crimes, and then releasing them, even though ICE has put a hold on and wants to come and pick them up and wants to deport them, and they're like, no, we're just gonna, we're just gonna let you go. Honestly, I think what also has to happen is seriously increased penalties, and I mean seriously increased penalties for the following type of person. Number one, he's been deported before. Number two, he has previously been convicted of a felony. I think that anybody who has previously been convicted of a felony and has been previously deported and is picked up should do serious time in prison before being forcibly deported and barred from ever legally entering the United States again. And so I think there's a whole lot of reforms in that area that are needed. But bottom line, Mark, while I think that we need to pray, and while I think that we need to build up our conservative base and run more candidates and try and try and affect the long-term change, in the short term, I think we have to accept that right now Donald Trump is the best we got. And I think it was Wild Bill who I heard say, and pardon the language, Mark, but I believe I heard Wild Bill once say, yeah, Donald Trump's an asshole, but he's our asshole.
He's our, yeah.
and he is, and he's not Hitler, and he hadn't been perfect, but he's kept the majority of his promises. And for 2020, there is not going to be an alternative. And as much as I do not want to reward Republicans in the House and Senate, this is war. This is war, and the other side is over the line. You know, the New York Times, and I'm looking at the time, and you got a busy night, so you should probably let me go. But the New York Times did a story this week in which they were criticizing Republicans for using the language of demonization to describe Democrats. Okay, and then they said it has reached the point where Republicans are suggesting that all Democrats are one of three things. They are either baby killers, they are socialists, or they are anti-Semites. And I thought to myself, it's been a long time since I've met a Democrat that wasn't either a baby killer, a socialist, or an anti-Semite.
Or some combination of all three.
Or some combination of those. Okay, I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, how is this? I mean, they're admitting that they're socialists. They might not be admitting to the fact that they're anti-Semitic, but they are certainly admitting to the fact that they're.
Well, yeah, when Bibi came to speak, a lot of them just didn't show up.
Exactly, and with wanting to kill babies born alive, but yeah, that issue's going on right now. And I'm sorry, these pro-life bills should have been passed in the first 2 years of the Trump administration. Now, kudos to Trump. I've been saying for a while now that he's the strongest pro-life president of my lifetime, whether he believes it or not, but that I would only give him an A-, that he wasn't perfect. And sometimes people would pull me aside and say, well, what do you mean he's not perfect, yet he's the best of your lifetime? And I'll say, well, I only gave Reagan a B+, and I only gave W a B, and I only gave HW a C+. But Trump did something today, and it's not as big as some people are pretending like it is. But by executive order, he changed who can get money for family planning purposes. And it's basically, if somebody is an abortion provider, they can't get federal money for family planning purposes. And it's going to cut about 10% of the money that Planned Parenthood's currently getting. It's going to take away about 10% of their money that they're currently getting from the feds. And it was something that he could do through executive order. Wish he had done it earlier, but he did it today. And so the A- starts to lift up a little bit closer towards an A on Trump on the pro-life issue. Let
me give you a parting thought, because I do need to make room for Troy Towns. He'll be coming in, and I won't be working with. Well, I'll finish that in the monologue. The argument, the logic that drives the sanctuary cities. Let's try to get some perspective. This is the same logic and the same argument when it appeared that we were going to lose our Second Amendment rights. The local sheriffs were going to step in and say, "I'll enforce no such law."
Oh, by the way, there's a couple of counties that are starting to do that. There's a couple of counties in, and I don't have the information in front of me, but in states that look like they're about to pass, where Democrats just took over the state legislature, and they look like they're about to pass this very anti-Second Amendment. Some counties have simply come up and said, we're going to declare ourselves sanctuary counties of the Second Amendment, and we're not going to enforce those laws in our counties.
Well, I mean, but I'm not saying it's right, good, or bad. I'm just saying that when these crises come up, the local sheriff is not paid to enforce federal law.
No, he's not.
So if the federal agents want to come down and do something, they can do that. But the sheriff, if they ask for his help, will say, well, we're kind of busy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, it's the same argument as sanctuary cities.
Yeah, sheriffs can do more than that. Let me close with this. We have a bridge in the greater New Orleans area called the Causeway. And it's actually the longest over water bridge in the world. And it crosses, we don't have counties here, we have parishes, but it crosses two parishes. It crosses Jefferson Parish and St. Tammany Parish, which are both basically right outside of Orleans Parish. And a few years ago, the Causeway Police Force, which, believe it or not, exists, the bridge has its own police force, irritated the sheriff of Jefferson Parish because they started pulling over some of his deputies and giving his deputies tickets. And
that's kind of poking your finger in your eye.
And the sheriff came out and he said, according to my reading of the Louisiana State Constitution, the Causeway Police do not have a right to exist. And anytime one of my deputies gets pulled over on the Causeway Bridge again, we are going to send in more deputies to arrest that Causeway police officer. And we will bring him, we will bring him to justice inside of Jefferson Parish. And things got worked out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was that sheriff was a trip. He's dead now, Sheriff Harry Lee. But he was the sheriff of Jefferson Parish for a long time, and he was quite the character. And when it came to racial profiling, he would just look at you and say, yep, I do it. There's neighborhoods where I arrest every white person that goes in. And there's neighborhoods where I arrest every black person that goes in.
Okay.
And I arrest people going where they don't belong. So he was a character. But Mark, it's been good to talk to you.
Roger, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to having some fun next week too.
All righty, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right, man, have a good one. Well, I tell you what, I could go on and on, and Roger and I have had many phone conversations, not very much unlike what you just heard. Interesting guy, smart guy, engaging guy, and we're very fortunate to have him on our card. Now, I tell you what, we're going to back out and play a few songs. We've got Hazards 4 at the control. We've also got Sunbelt Girl. I see that Wild Bill has been in the chat room, and we've also been joined by D, and I might be mispronouncing Mashek. Sorry, it's kind of like having a name like Prasik. It's hard. But, hey, it's been really great, and let's see if we can get Troy Towns on board tonight and hear from him, and then I'll also be circling up with Wild Bill, although I don't think we'll be making it on the air tonight, okay? So, from PJNET Live, we're signing out for now.